So
Mm.
really, really make sure you ask questions and make sure you're comfortable with the company because, again, you're giving away some shares in your business. And that
That's
could affect potential investment rounds down the road.
Hi, innovators. Welcome to the Can Innovate podcast, where we highlight Canadian innovators who are changing the game. I'm Sapna Malhotra, your proud Canadian host. The Can Innovate podcast is about providing industry insights from Canadian innovators that are doing it. They are really crushing it out there in the industry. These innovators share insightful thought leadership, tips, tricks, tactics that we can all adopt. Plus, they even share their own entrepreneurial tales of successes and failures, and they really show us what we can learn. So let's continue to innovate our own businesses, lives, and careers. And if you know of any Canadian innovators that should be featured, drop us a line. You know I love getting feedback and hearing from everyone. You can contact me via email, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, hint, hint, even in a review. All right, let's get to this episode. We are really lucky and honored to have Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with us today. In fact, actually, I met Sarah through when I actually spoke at George Brown College because she had also done a speaking session there and also got a massive round of applause because she was so inspiring and so amazing that what she's up to. So Sarah actually stands at the forefront of international trade with expertise in the global logistics industry. She's working with the private sector to build, develop, and increase efficiencies in their supply chains. I mean, who doesn't need that, right? So she spends her past, 20 years working in logistics and supply chain. She is the CEO of ShipSet, which is with the Z, a new technology that will disrupt the supply chain, as well as being the founder and host of her own supply chain podcast. Let's talk supply chain. I love having you're the first fellow podcaster I've actually ever had on. So this is exciting beyond belief for me. So Sarah interviews guests on a variety of different supply chain topics, keeping her audience up to date of industry trends, new initiatives. She continues in her dedication to the community and education. She's on the board member for FIT, Forum of International Trade and Training, and Ships is owned by Canadians looking to disrupt the shipping and supply chain space. Welcome, Sarah.
Amazing introduction. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I just want to say, before we get started, you have been so amazing to me this week. I was sick earlier and we rescheduled, and I just want to say thank you for that. And I want to thank you for all you do on this show, because as a fellow podcaster, I know how hard you work, and you are amazing, and your contributions are so, so great. So I just wanted to interject that into the beginning of the episode.
You're amazing, Sarah. Seriously, I'm so glad our acquaintances have met, and now I'm going to have a new friend, which I'm even more excited about, and somebody that's a podcaster. So I love it. We get to share tips and tricks amongst each other. So this is brilliant. I cannot wait to hear more of your episodes, which, by the way, for our listeners, I will put that in the show notes for sure. It's something you definitely want to listen to. And you know what? This is the perfect timing because my friend Julie Shum was actually asking about what's happening in supply chain, what's actually happening in that industry. And I'm like, I've got an episode for you. So this episode is dedicated to my friend Julie Shum, who is very passionate about supply chain.
Awesome. Awesome. I love to hear that. You know what? Supply chain affects every single thing that you touch and use on a daily basis. And more people are starting to want to know more about it. And I love it because it's such a passion of mine.
Oh, I love it. So let's start there. What exactly is Ships with the Z? SHIPZ.
So we're a transportation booking platform for international freight. There's a little bit more to it, but that's kind of our secret sauce. We're just getting started, and we're looking to disrupt the industry and really help shippers connect and redefine their supply chains.
Is there a big problem with that currently?
So the industry is a little bit archaic. There is a lot of use of still fax machines and Excel spreadsheets, which is kind of crazy. And there's a lot of disruption happening in there's a lot of different aspects of supply chain where disruption is happening. The booking side of things, if you think of like an Expedia, but for international freight. So air freight, ocean freight. Some people have done it in the trucking industry. And there's so many different things in supply chain that can be disrupted right now that there are a lot of innovators and innovations coming out, which are amazing.
Oh, awesome. For our listeners out there, can you give us a definition of what exactly supply chain is? Because I think that word gets thrown around quite a bit.
Yeah, I actually have an episode. I interviewed a supply chain manager and a logistics manager because I wanted to know from their point of view what the difference was. So I actually did an episode on that. Supply chain is basically everything from purchasing to the last mile delivery and everything in between. So you've got sourcing the product, you've got purchasing, you've got procurement in there, you've got transportation, you've got trade finance, you've got delivery, you've got customs in there. So it really encompasses the whole supply chain from sourcing to last mile delivery, whereas logistics is just a small component of that. Logistics is more of like the transportation piece.
Wow. So it really is everything under the sun from end to end.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that episode that you're referring, I'll definitely put that in the show notes as well so that everyone else can get that detailed view. I love that you had that compare and contrast on your podcast.
There's so many people that talk about it and they use supply chain in the wrong sentence or logistics in the wrong sentence. And I just thought it was, a way to sort of bring it to the forefront of, what exactly is supply chain and what exactly is logistics?
Oh, I love it. So you're mentioning about, ships is a new technology that's going to disrupt the supply chain itself. Let's talk a little bit about exactly how that would kind of work and what does that look like?
So the market right now for transportation and logistics is about $8.1 trillion.
Ooh.
Yeah,
wow.
It's a really, really big market. And there are freight forwarders that handle a lot of the transportation, and they're kind of like the middleman. So if you think about Expedia, they're the travel agent for travel. So a freight forwarder is a travel agent for freight. And they own a lot of that market, actually. They own about, trying to think here, but I think it's like 200 and something billion of that $1 trillion industry.
Oh, that's amazing. These are such huge numbers I can barely even fathom. Maybe I need another cup of coffee. So how did you come up with this idea to get involved in that part of the supply chain?
So I've been in the industry on a private sort of 3PL side for about 20 years. Worked in every single department, did exports, did imports, did customs, got into the sales side, then I got into the marketing side. I love the marketing side because in this supply chain industry, nobody really knows how to capture the digital marketing space. And I love trying different things and doing different things. So I ended up really loving the marketing side. But because I grew up in that industry, I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and the uglier of that industry. I won't go into details, but I've definitely seen the uglier. And I've seen it from all angles. So I really took a look at, what's working, what's not working. There's communication issues, there's trust issues, there's too many people involved. And I just wanted to come up with a simpler way for shippers to be able to move their goods around the world and to be able to really create an awesome supply chain in their business.
That is so cool. It's such an industry that I'm so not familiar with. When you're talking about shipping, how does something get there? How does something move from one place to another? I never think about it. But I can imagine it's complicated and also very costly in terms of how the assets are, managing it all, making sure you've got a full crate to send over. I can imagine it's very complicated.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to it. Again, there's a lot of people involved. Some of those people don't need to be involved anymore with some of the transitions, the digital, the technology that's coming out. So it's going to be interesting to see, where it goes. I mean, as a real life example. So let's take a look at warehousing. I know we've been talking about transportation, but if we take a look at warehousing, which I think a lot of people can really relate to. So right now, warehousing is made up mostly of finished product. Right? So your finished product is sitting on the shelf and it gets picked. You order it, they pick that finished product, they put it into a box and they ship it to you. Well, with the emergence of 3D printing, that's not necessarily the case anymore. And things are going to be transitioning on the warehousing side. So if you can imagine the transition potentially of raw materials on that shelf instead of a finished product, and that raw material is put into a 3D printer and prints your product and then ships it out to you.
That's mind-blowing.
I know. So these are the types of things. And when I mean like many moving facets, like there are a lot of parts of supply chain that people are looking to change and innovate. And that's just one of them.
That's amazing. This is so cool. Now after blockchain, I might start playing around in supply chain because this sounds way too much fun. So you've been doing this for like 20 something years. So you've had a lot of experience in doing all these things. So were you always working with a company or were you always independent?
I was always working with the company. It was a family business. And I kind of grew up in this space. I totally just loved the space. Got really passionate about supply chain. Again, I was really lucky to try all different facets of that company, from operations to sales to marketing. And it was just something that I really, really loved doing. And then I started to, try different things on the side. And that's sort of where Ships came in. And I've been working on it for over a year. And my co-founder and I are looking to, take it into the next level. We're looking at ICOs. We're looking at blockchain being a part of the platform. So there's a lot of things that we're working on and things that we're doing that I'm really, really excited to bring to the industry.
I love the fact that this is like in your blood and your DNA. It's all there. It's like you can just feel it, everything, the parts of it. That's brilliant. Oh my God. So what excites you even more about this industry? I mean, you're like, to your point, 3D printing, blockchain, I guess the possibilities are endless. And I guess your clients are, global. It's not just around Canada.
Yeah, so the clients will definitely be global. So we're not at the stage where we have clients just yet. You can go to our website, ships.com, and sign up to be one of the first to know when we are ready for the launch. We are giving tidbits of information as we go along, especially if we're going to be going along the ICO route, just to let everybody know sort of where we are in the process and different things like that. But there's so much changing. And I guess the one part that I'm really excited about is that we're going to be working with other innovators in the space. And I'm excited to see, we've been talking to a lot of potential customers. We've been talking to a lot of different carriers and things like that. And I love to see how the players are responding to change. The shippers know that it's needed. They really, really want it. And they're open to discussing the ideas of innovation, of doing things differently, but making life a lot simpler on every single facet. The innovators, the shippers, carriers, everybody's looking for that one piece. And I don't know if there's going to be one company that's really going to be able to do that. I hope that Ships will be that one because of some of the things that, our secret sauce that I'm not going to reveal today. Again, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of different innovators. And it's going to be really interesting to see. It's already starting to happen. I think the complete change is really, really going to be, within the next 2 to 5 years.
This is crazy. So I was just saying to someone else the other day that if people think the rate of change is really fast now, we're on the lower end of that curve. It's just going to accelerate faster and faster and faster beyond belief. And, the fact that you're using all the different types of technologies out there to really integrate it, like this is a perfect example to showcase of how things can move. Like I'm guessing eventually down the road, there's going to be some artificial intelligence. There's going to be, the machine learning in the background behind all of it. Maybe that is your secret sauce. But, it's really fascinating because the supply chain really is incorporating every element of things where other guests are focusing on one specific piece of a puzzle. You've got it all. Look at that, Sarah. You've got it all.
I love it.
So what is, a biggest aha moment that you've had that you could share with our listeners?
Biggest aha moment? Well, really, it's just about hard work. Asking questions really pays off. I am right now in the middle of building our board of advisors. And if anybody, looks at ICOs and things like that, they know that you've got to have a kick-ass board of advisors. And I have been reaching out to some amazing, amazing people. And it's just amazing to me how responsive they are and how just getting the courage to just ask will open doors that you can't even imagine walking through. And so, that was an aha moment for me, was that, just get out there, start talking about it and ask people and see what their thoughts are. And you're going to get no's, but you're also going to get yeses. And I am very excited about some of the people that I've been able to talk to about Ships and about building our board of advisors.
That's amazing. I love that. Courage to ask. I always say you only need 5 seconds of courage. That's all you need.
Yeah, and what's the worst that can happen, right? They're going to say no. Well, that's part of entrepreneurship, right?
So it's being bold and just asking the question. So speaking of entrepreneurship, has there been a big lesson learned that you've had or something you wish someone had told you?
I think I wish I would have known, or maybe, known a little bit more about accelerator programs, especially for our stage of startups. So as a technology company, I mean, most people know that it takes a lot of money to be able to start a company like this. And there's, a lot of programs out there, but a lot of them, when it comes to funding and things like that, they want you to have customers already. And so I'm finding that there is a really big gap in sort of the accelerator and funding programs, especially here in Canada, because you need to be at a certain stage. And, with a technology company, I think in some regards, it's just not, possible to be at that stage.
Yeah, it's funny. I have some friends that are VCs, and they've been really open about this, about talking about the difference between Canadian funding and the U.S. funding. Canadian funding tends to be really around they don't tend to invest pre-revenue. They tend to invest, post-revenue, that you've already made some traction. Well, that means you've already got a proof of concept built out, and all you need is scale. Where in the U.S., it tends to be like they've got an idea, let's put a bit of money to really test it out. Let me help you with that to see if we can gain traction. So there really is a bit of a shift in the mentality. And in fact, we had Anthony Lacavera on the podcast last year, which he was also challenging about how we think as a country and how we need to change our behavior to be more of a risk taker to really go for that gold.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That's been one of the most challenging things. I've spoken to pretty much the founder of a lot of the funding opportunities, accelerator programs. And that's the other thing on the grant side, is that it's not very easy to navigate in Canada for possible grants and things like that for the company. And even on the grant side, there's a big gap between, whether they will provide the grant to your company or not.
True. It's such a confusing space, but you know what? Lots of opportunities when you can figure out the maze.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Is there any other advice you provide to our aspiring or budding Canadian innovators out there that want to try something new?
I really think about your board of advisors. Have an advisor who's been where you are. They can help you save money with some of the documentation that's needed, especially on the startup side, with funding packages, investment documents, things like that. And I would also, even though I've talked about the accelerator programs and there being a gap, I do see the need for it. And I really do think that if you're persistent in finding the right accelerator program for your business, I think that they do make a big difference. But the one thing that I will say on the accelerator side is to make sure that you read the fine print and also make sure that you have a discussion with them about every single point of why they're going to be taking percentage in your company.
Wise words. Read the fine print. That's the really, really tiny one. That's like 2 font.
Well, even some of the fine print, like we came up against an accelerator program that really wanted us in their selection process. We were top 30 companies out of 2,000. But if we signed a certain document, it was a gentleman's agreement that we were going ahead. So really, really make sure you ask questions and make sure you're comfortable with the company because, again, you're giving away some shares in your business. And that could affect potential investment rounds down the road.
Yep. Totally makes sense. Wow. So these are good words and wise words for us to all consider. So, Sarah, you are fascinating. You're a fellow podcaster, so I find you fascinating. But do you have any favorite key business philosophies or quotes something that kind of creates that eureka moment and helps you stay focused?
So personally, I've always loved, and I don't know who wrote this, but life is lived forward and understood backwards. So you may not understand everything now, but one day you will. And I believe that that's because everything happens for a reason.
I love that. And being that you've got so many different hats that you wear, I mean, seriously, you're a podcaster, you've got a family, you've got all your other personal stuff, you've got this huge business, you're growing the business. Is there a popular productivity tool that you use? Because I always struggle to find something new to try to help me. Okay, so I am super, super old school. I am a pen, paper, and agenda type girl. As much as I'm building a technology company,
I just find that I am super, super productive with a paper, pen, and an agenda. And that's how I stay focused. That's how I get as much done that I do. And yeah, that's kind of me.
I love that. Hey, as I'm writing on pen and paper talking to you.
My co-founder hates it.
Everyone has different approaches. That's why I always struggle to find something new to try, because I'm like, maybe something will gravitate to take me out of it. But yeah, I kind of like my handwriting. I think that's what it is. So do you have a book that you recommend, something that's inspired you or something that you think is really, amazing?
Probably not a book, but can I maybe recommend a couple of podcasts?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I listen to a lot of podcasts. Not only do I produce podcasts, but I listen to a lot of them. And one of them I really enjoy is Lewis Howes' School of Greatness. One of the episodes in particular was with Jay Shetty, and that was because he went from corporate to being a monk. And he's pretty fascinating, and I thought that episode was really, really cool. And then another one, everybody knows Oprah, and I really like her Super Soul Conversations. One of the most recent one that I listened to was Stephen Colbert, and he was talking about his success really didn't come until his 40s. As being somebody who is striving for success in my 30s, and actually late 30s, it was kind of awesome just to hear from him that his success came in his 40s. So it just that little bit of nudge, that little bit more motivation to sort of keep going and know that even though you're creeping up on 40, it doesn't necessarily mean that success isn't coming.
Oh, I love that. That's great. That's great. Is there a CEO or a company that you're currently watching or following?
Yeah, so one of the guys that I'm actually following is the CEO of Magical. His name is Nova Spivak. And actually, I do want to mention somebody else that I'm really involved with, talk to a lot, and has been a really great mentor to me as well. He's not a CEO, but he's a COO of Gemini Shippers Group. And on the ship side, he has been just a fountain of knowledge and expertise and has just been really supportive in the journey. So I want to mention Ken over at Gemini Shippers Group because he's just been an amazing source of everything for us.
Amazing. And do you have a personal habit that helps you stay productive?
So I do a few things. I am a list writer. So I write lists upon lists, but not too many lists. So I write everything out from Monday to Friday, the different tasks that I want to get done for that day. I'm also a prioritize and shift type girl. So if I don't get it done on that day, I'll shift it to another day while I know that I have the mental capacity or the time to be able to do it. And then I have a morning and evening routine. So I do a lot of meditation. I do some yoga in the evenings, and I write in a gratitude journal every night.
Oh, that's lovely. That is lovely. We have a lot of international listeners, and, I keep laughing about how, everyone should come to Canada because now we've got pot legalized, basically. So is there anything that you want to showcase from the Canadian perspective of a city, town, festival, food, restaurant that you would recommend?
Just on that cannabis note, I did an episode on the cannabis supply chain. I think for me it was episode 66, where we talk about all the regulations and sort of where all the gaps are in this legalization of cannabis, which is very interesting because nobody really knows what's going on. But anyways, going back to my Canadian hotspot. So for me, I had to do some dietary changes about 18 months ago to 2 years for some health reasons. And it was very difficult for me. I really liked baked goods and I like chocolate. Like I love chocolate chip cookies and bundt cakes. And so the change for me and the challenge for me was finding somewhere, because I'm not a baker. I'm really not a cook and I'm not a baker. So I had to find somewhere where I could find that kind of stuff. And there's a place in Burlington. I know it's not downtown, so it's probably not sexy, but it's a place in Burlington called Primal Cravings. And they do hot lunches and frozen meals and all of these like yummy baked goodies for anybody that has like dairy free, they're gluten free. What else was I? Soy free, like all that kind of stuff. Yeah, sorry, it's not even just gluten-free. They only use like almond flour and stuff like that. So.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. And by the way, it doesn't have to be downtown Toronto to be sexy. This just calls for a road trip. That's all that screams out to me. And finally, Sarah, how can our listeners connect with you?
There's a couple of different places. Hang on to your hats here because I'm going to name them all. So you can email me at listener@letstalksupplychain.com. My website is letstalksupplychain.com for the podcast. For ships, it's ships with a Z, so shipz.com. On Twitter, we are Let's Talk S Chain. And on Instagram, we're Let's Talk Supply Chain. And on Instagram, for me personally, I'm B_Victory S. And on Twitter, I'm Sarah Caroline 88. But look me up on LinkedIn because I am Sarah Barnes-Humphrey.
I love that. Well, don't worry, I put all the links down in the show notes so nobody has to look too far for you, including the episodes that you referred to, because that is awesome.
Well, I love to connect, so I definitely want to encourage your listeners to look me up on LinkedIn and connect with me on LinkedIn because I just love connecting with all sorts of people.
Me too. I love that. That's excellent. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being sick and still showing up. I think that's just brilliant beyond belief.
Thanks, Apna. Take care.
Thank you, innovators, for joining us this week. Our Facebook page is moving and growing each week, so please join us. I post a lot of interesting articles about Canadian innovation trends, the movers, the shakers, plus things that I think are just funny. And if you know any Canadian innovators that should be featured, drop us a line. I love getting feedback and hearing from everyone. You can contact me on email, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, hint, hint, even in the review. I'm still channeling Gary V that ratings and reviews are my oxygen. And remember, this is our podcast. I look forward to hearing and chatting with you next week.